Okay, I have a lot of questions because I think that it's dope that two sisters created a safe haven in a cis white male predominantly based area, and I think that's dope. So, first thing, I would like you to introduce each yourselves. To kind of give everybody a little background about you.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Deja, and what's my background? Oh, the background of my life is a lot. I am unorthodox myself. You know what I mean? I come from a non-traditional sort of background, education-wise. Earth School is my school of choice. I was a young mom. Beauty has always been interesting to me. Just that, I've always been attracted to originality, and so I don't know. I think replenish. We'll talk more about like how that kind of developed into the concept of like what replenish really means. But I have 4 children. What else? What else about myself? My favorite color right now is purple. I don't know what that means. Yeah. If I can be any animal today, it would probably be a turtle. So
why a turtle? If you don't mind me asking, what is it about the turtle? Is it a specific?
Yeah, turtles would move slow. And then, you're always surprised when you see a turtle. You're like, oh, look at that turtle. So I think it's something like right now, life for me is precious and moving slow is like a practice right now for me. Like, because I'm a fast pace, like I'm always going. So the turtle is a reminder of like you just gotta move slow right now. There's so much to practice inside self right now that the turtle is my symbol.
I get it. Although the turtle is slowing down, is it slowing down or are we just moving more so intent?
That's a good one. So definitely intentional, but for me, in order for me to be intentional, I gotta slow down. Yeah, that's a little bit about my background, but as the questions, as the conversation twists and turns, there's probably more.
Would you say that your sister gave a very accurate, brief description of herself?
Yes. also adding in those spontaneous questions. She's the spontaneity of Replenish. She keeps it interesting for us.
I can see that, but I can also see how it plays when you guys are a good balance.
Yeah, Chanelle's the database and like, listen, get it together.
SOPs.
So yes, I'm Chanelle. I'm the other half of Replenish. Background wise, I would say I was probably the more traditional person, almost to a fault, where I wanted to go to college. I wanted to, be a doctor back then and, do all the things, check all the marks, cross off the list. Mm-hmm. So, life took some twists and turns, and I still, of course, am in health and wellness. But I needed to fall down a bit, and I did in my 20s. And we always knew we were going to work together. So the timing all aligned, and Deja Mom and I started 10 years ago. I have 3 children, and deal a lot with sort of finding balance in my own life, because I'm like this traditional sort of type A personality. I think Replenish has been like this place where I can look at myself in the mirror to see if I am my truest self. It's like been that sort of force for me to like pause, even though it's my work. It's like, okay, am I doing my best work? So it's like that mirror for me to be my best self. It challenges me in ways that I never knew I would be challenged. So, that's me in a nutshell.
Well, I definitely.
Chanelle has so much. She's got a bit more background too.
Oh, I know. Both of you do. Both of you do. Like... I have several questions. So to start, you said that you knew that you guys were going to be working together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I guess, Chanelle, pose this question correctly because you're never supposed to ask women her age. What is the age difference between you two?
3.5 years.
Oh, that's not bad. So 3.5. Yeah. So you guys are more to me, I think like if you're like in that 1 to 5 year mark, kind of almost it can either be a twin like where you're
Yeah.
almost like twins, or you can be rivals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think growing up, we've always been close, but I think that we were more different than similar growing up. And we got closer in our 20s when life hit us like from different directions, but the same kind of way. Like, dang. You know what I'm saying? She's like, I went to college, and I'm like, I didn't, but we still here in this space where life is just like squeezing us here. So yeah, we are definitely, I think, twin souls, you know, like, in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that we've learned how to balance like the yin yang sort of concepts, like, and it's actually switched several times in our lifetime so far. Like, you know, I was the big sister, and she was the younger sister growing up. But then, you know, in our 20s, I needed her wisdom and I needed to be nurtured, and so it switched. You know, and it switched again, you know, probably a couple more times back and forth. But we learned this form of cooperation, which we've definitely sort of planted the seeds for in our business model.
And I think also in this industry, people try to like separate us. Like they'll be like, oh, without Chanelle, Deja can't exist because she's like the database. And then like, oh, without Deja, Chanelle couldn't exist because it's just like I'm more the face of the brand. But we switch roles and we cooperate so well that you really can't separate us, right? Like because we don't attack. We also want each other to evolve and grow. So like I'll push her forward and she'll push me into like, okay, no, you're really great with money and finances. So like don't sleep. You're great with numbers. You just learn differently. So like we honor that in our relationship. And you know, when people come in, it's like people just naturally want to separate things, you know, and we work really hard as a family unit to stay together.
And I think it's very interesting. You said a lot of things. First, like, you know, some people say, oh, you don't want to go on business with your family. You hear that quite often. And I think that those issues occur with the family dynamics breaking down when, you know, as each other evolves and grows, you're still holding that person at that one position. I know you're forever the little sister or the little brother. And, you know, you won't allow the other person or the dynamics of the relationship to shift and evolve as you grow. And then even you guys, you know, as that's like how you make a great ship, like a partnership, a friendship, like to be able to know your strengths. And then you also said something rather than saying, and I kind of took it for myself. Like I'll tell my business partner, I'm like, hey, you better with numbers and stuff like that. He said, no, it's not that you're not good with numbers. Like you said, you just learn differently.
Yeah.
And that's still encouraging the other individual to still for them to be independent, because if you know it's like a triangle. If we're both trying to go into the, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
But anyways, I digress. So 10 years ago, how did mom play a role in kind of bringing everything together?
She's the visionaire. She's the what would you call her, Chanelle?
She was the holder of the seed. Like she always knew we were gonna do something. Like she's the intuition. I mean, we also have our own intuition.
Intuitive.
Yeah, she held space. Yeah.
So
she had a dream about long before, I don't even know if we were born yet. She had a dream that she had like a wellness center or more, it was a bed and breakfast, I think. And you know, care has just been a thing in our family, just the idea of care. We come from a lineage of women who just care so much. And in the Black community, I mean, we care, right? We had to care even when we didn't want to care.
Very much so.
And so we kind of took that concept, and so she had a dream about the name Replenished. Me and Chanelle didn't love the name because it's so long. And marketing wise, we was like, no. But we had to honor that. She's like, no, my mom said, you know, you have to slow down and say replenish. And then when you sign your check, like when you sign money over or you see it on your account, it says replenish. Like it's
subliminal, yeah.
Yeah, so mom she be on that.
She was in it. She's in the shoes. For sure. Like that's wow.
Yeah.
I can honestly say as a patron, you definitely feel the love and care when you walk in. And one thing I also love is now it makes even more sense knowing the full history, because you know I've gotten bits and pieces. It honestly feels like you're coming into a family home. And I grew up in Virginia. It's like the top of the South. It's very, very southern. I don't care what it is. It's very southern, low-key country. But just those bigger houses and just going in and, it feels warm and inviting, smelling sage or frankincense. That to me, those are the staple smells, in African American culture. Those things, it feels like home. So when you literally walk into the place, you're wrapped in warmth, like from the smells. And then it even will bring you back to some of the beautiful times that you even had. And you can just tell it's just a family home. And, it does kind of feel like a bed and breakfast too at the same time, but you still know it's just a place to rest in the middle of downtown. It's like an oasis. So I think that's amazing. That I had no idea that was the story. What? Shout out to Mom. So in kind of knowing that at times when business hasn't always gone the way that you guys may have thought it has gone, have you always kind of kept that or used that as almost an essential North Star? Like, hey, this may be going on, but we know this was preordained.
Yeah, so that's a lot there. I'll first talk about you brought up intentionality earlier on when we talked about the turtle. This house and the intentionality about it is a symbol of hope for all people. And at first, when we got into the business, it was, really just about caring for others and like this idea that you don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to have this fixed image of what beauty looks like. But really, it also was like this internal process for ourselves and our family unit. And so being an entrepreneur and being in this business, capitalism is a bully. So, we talk about this conscious capitalism. It's like, what does conscious mean? We really had to get self-aware individually in order to stay close to our hearts really in this mission, because it is a toggle. It's hard to keep your mission and intention and also toggle with like financial, the cash flow and how to like grow the business. Because we really honored the slow pace we didn't have a lot of capital when we first started. It was all word of mouth. And Chanelle, you probably can chime in here too, because I mean, it is a toggle between, not losing the seed that my mom planted, that we planted together, and the intention behind this mission, and also still having a business, still making sure that we, can make a living.
For sure.
Yeah. I would say Replenish has been that thread that keeps us coming back. Like that, anytime life was starting to get, or the business was starting to get too stressful, or we were dealing with a lot where we weren't sure if we were going to make it. I mean, that coming back to that vision, that, our business plan, that was inherent inside of us, that sort of kept us coming back to each other. It also, because we're a family business, there were several dynamics playing out at the same time. It was like fast-paced therapy in the very beginning, because we did have our familial roles, right. And that was a challenge and a struggle. And but the business has actually supported, I think, our familial dynamics, because we respect each other in different ways that you may not get by just being sisters or by being mother-daughter. Like we had to coexist in other ways and build that respect. And so I think that it's added that extra layer that sort of is a thread that we keep coming back to in our personal lives too.
We were the first Black yoga spa in Columbus, and so like the aspect of yoga has been the most slowest growing part of our space, but most sacred part, because this idea of yoga for us was like everyday life yoga where everybody can attain it, but also this unity in oneself and this acceptance of like what I offer in the world and what Chanelle offers in the world is enough. And this practice. So we did come back to it every single time. Like self-work is sacred. As soon as I feel like we had our most problems when we drifted too far away from ourselves. And like we had to will it back in, like, wait a minute, like I'm all over the place. Like, so I'm the vision of the business. So when I'm all over the place, that throws Chanelle off. So if I don't get myself correct, then I'm like, Chanelle's like, we was just going this direction. Now we over here, And it's like,
they'll be telling me, hey, I know you want to do this, but hey, you need to bring it back in.
Also, like, like when we opened the second location, or we brought on too many people, like too many employees at the same time, like trying to grow too big, because like you said, Deja, like capitalism, that bully, trying to compete with other people or trying to feel like you have to grow at a certain rate. when the core of who we are is slow and intentional. And so we were drifting away from our core when we were doing those things instead of letting it just grow naturally. Because we felt like, well, maybe we should get another location. Maybe we should grow to the next level, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's right for your business, which we found out.
With client friends, we were growing. So when your energy elevates, you got to be cautious, and protection, like healthy boundaries is everything. And that's something that I personally didn't have great healthy boundaries. And so you elevate, your energy starts elevating, and it's almost like an antenna that sends messages out to everybody, even the crazies. Just saying. So when you rise up, you gotta stay close to self and reacclimate around, like, okay, what are my healthy boundaries? What are our boundaries? Who are we trying to attract here? Because you're gonna attract vultures, you know what I'm saying? So we had some vultures, you know what I mean? But we still loved on them, but we had to cut it. We had to identify, and we had to move forward. So, all of those things, like the people who work for us mean so much. But as a family, we had to make sure that it was about reciprocity, and it took a minute for us. We were given so much that our business was failing, like not failing, but it was suffering, right? Because we were just in that space of giving and not receiving.
Understood.
Like we have to have that, reciprocity is the art of knowing when to give and when to receive, just like our breath, that inhale and exhale. And I think that's been sort of that flow. Like, okay, so we give, but we also need to receive, because we are the source of energy. Replenish. In order for us to all be here, we have to make it.
Well,
but go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, also this industry historically has always been sort of like give, and then because we're Black women, also generationally, we have been caregivers, and deal with that generational trauma. So I think it was like a mixture of all kinds of things, that we had to sort out for ourselves. Like we had to create these boundaries, to be a safe space for others. We had to have a safe place for ourselves, and that includes what you're talking about, Deja.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also what has covered us, like when we're in the trenches, going back to your original question, Chris, is when those problems occur, I feel like when you're in alignment with your heart space and you're in alignment with nature and your truest intention, there's grace, right? So when the problems occurred, it was almost like we were covered, but the challenge is still there. I don't know how to explain that. You know what I mean? Like you don't avoid challenge. Challenge is light, like it's going to happen. Yes. But there's like, you feel the sense of, but we're covered somehow, right? Yes. Like you still got to work through it, but there's some grace that happens when you stay connected to your intention, to your heart. And I think grace has covered us for sure this 10 years. And I probably will release some of this information as this conversation goes on here.
Oh, I mean, I know. So I know kind of the in betweens. With certain things. I mean, and even there's actually a couple of things I'm going to say, because it's right here. I mean, everybody knows. So maybe people don't know. I grew up Pentecostal whole life, so I used to be a preacher. You can say that. I don't identify as Muslim now. But the reason why I say that is I'm referencing. It says that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. It doesn't say the weapon will not form. It does not say that the weapon will not do some form of damage, but it won't prosper and be our enemy. Yeah. And I think that's also referring to the grace. And then sometimes it's a thing of, I kind of said, like, even with everything happening at the beginning of the year with coronavirus and the first shutdown, that eventually is going to be another probably stay at home. But it was more so like, you could say, whatever spiritual being that you're guiding is maybe saying, hey, look, this is about to happen. You need to get your affairs in order, and you need to get ready and to prepare yourself. And so I think, and that's also a thing. Just going back to again, like just the grace. Like I see it happening. It's kind of affecting me, but kind of something is guiding me to make it through. And I don't know. I'm just going with it. It's an alignment and just sticking close to it. And then you also talked about referencing. Yes, Black women have always had to be the caregivers, even to their enemy. Like you're nursing, a slave. You're as a slave, you're nursing the master's children. You're creating the children. The same very people that are beating us and taking from us, we're supposed to take care of them. And then it's also, and as the Black woman, it's like everybody else's needs come first. And that's also, ironically, I also have a rename this shirt. So you guys also referenced that I wanted to bring to people's attention, and also when Black women, people take from Black women, Black culture. I have a problem if you're not a Black woman when you use certain narratives, certain phrases that came from Black women. Sis, go off, queen, etc., etc. You're taking from Black women and Black culture and not giving back. Even I've seen, living in Columbus, so now roughly about 5 years in December. I remember I was, familiar with some of the, yoga studios that started to pop up, and you can tell that there's a difference in the authenticity. And even when you walk in there, like you can tell when things are like very commercialized, it's not the same. Like, but the thing about it is that they're just focusing on commercialism. You guys are focusing on creating a safe space, and I think that also is why you guys continue to flourish in comparison to some of the other, people that are seen, if you will, as competition. So I applaud you, guys for that space. And I never did yoga before until I came over there because I didn't feel like I was a yogi. I didn't feel like I didn't pick a type. I didn't have the gear, and my equilibrium's not the best. But it was just like, no, it doesn't matter. It's very much so come as you are. Like all are welcome here, and it's not just something we're putting on a billboard to sell. Like this is really, that's what we embody. So again, I guess I'm just getting.
Thank
you. Yes. I mean, we have always, and I think we questioned it along the way, but I think now we both like really know that, that our intention means everything. Like even as a teacher, as a yoga teacher, I've paused my own teaching because I didn't feel like it was coming from an authentic space anymore, because that's so important. That's super important to us. Not that you can't teach and challenge or you can't teach, but I wasn't giving enough to myself, for my own self-care, that I didn't feel like I even had the capacity to offer anything for the students that came to our carriage. So I would pause. And I think even in our business, we've had moments where we realize like, we're going to pause here because we're uncertain. I think even with the carriage right now, like we chose to pause it for the summer because there's a lot of uncertainty. We're not going to put people in harm's way. And also, the spa's up and running, but we were able to, individually figure out, people are in rooms individually. And so it's just an easier model. But that was very important to us. Like we're not gonna compromise our integrity to compete.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call ourselves a yoga carriage, not a studio, for a reason. When you hear the word carriage, what comes to mind? And it's like allowing people to be invested in this too. It's not just, and the safe space is never a period at the end. It's a constant like check-in. Like you can't just be like, I'm a safe space, and then I don't have any more work to do. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's not safe. So you got to constantly check in. The world's always evolving, and it's like how can we shift our language? How can we, how can we really be intentional when people walk through that door? Because everyone's dealing with so much, especially in this world right now,
For sure. And I just, it's with 2020 being the year of clarity. I think what people, a lot of people saying that if you have bad intention, and then if you're going about things with, poor intentions, like it's going to be seen very quickly. It's no longer we're waiting for things to come to light. It's coming to light very quickly and fast. And then that gives, people, the opportunity to kind of make the decisions. And even being intentional where I spend my dollar, what businesses I support. I look at, their overall message and the people that are running these businesses. Because, you have to be careful in, the things that you support and give back to. And you want to make sure you're giving back to the things that align with you. I feel like at the end of the day. So there was a couple of other questions I did have that I wanted to ask, because Deja, I do know that you have a modeling background. I guess that would be your corporate background. Chanelle, I want you to tell me your background, because I know that each individual's experience, it had to have helped in what you have going now, or make the transition to what
you. Yeah. So what's the first question?
Okay, so you can go ahead and tell me your background as far as what you were doing before you guys say, okay, we're going to go all in and start Replenish.
So I've been in the beauty industry for, I always say this, and I'm like, what's the number? I think 17 years? Dang, yeah, I'm getting old. So I started as a receptionist, and I was like 15. And I think it's really important to start, as you consider whatever the bottom is, right? So you can see up, see all the vision, see all of the inspiration that's possible. And I started in predominantly white environments. So I was always maybe the only Black girl, maybe two, you know what I mean? So that came with its own like situation. I learned a lot about the beauty industry from a white perspective. So I always felt like there was something missing. And I knew that people were coming in, and I went to school to be an esthetician. I was, I had my daughter, and I was like, I went to Columbus State for like 3 months and was just sitting there, and something irritated me. And I was just like, I don't want to do this right now. So I went to school to be an esthetician. As soon as I walked in the door, I was like, this is it.
I feel it.
There's something about touch for me, is something about touch and something about emotions. I'm a very emotionally, I'm all about the emotional intelligence. And that means I also suffer greatly with my emotions. I'm always like in deep in every emotion, not just the positive ones. And so when you think about the face, you think about when you have an emotion, you're expressing it on your face. So as an esthetician, a person who is touching your face, there's just something so beautiful about supporting people in resetting your emotional, space every time you come in to sort of receive this connection. And then it's also always healthy dialogue. So I've been in the business for 17 years. And really I've just been in the business. I just learned so much about people. I love humans. You know what I'm saying? I love to observe people, and I love to hear their stories. And I learned so much about different cultures and just the art of listening to another human, was a school in itself.
Definitely creates empathy, and that was important. The reason why I'm asking you both the background, because sometimes people get involved in industries and have no history and background in it, and that's important. Like, so you need to. I want people to know, you're supporting, individuals that have the history and they have the expertise. They are the subject matter experts. They live this. They can just step into it because I see a market in a niche. Let me make some money. But just to insert that, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So again, I went like a traditional route. I went to Ohio State, majored in I was pre-med, molecular genetics. So I've always been a scientist. I've always been a very logical brain.
Molecular genetics. Wow.
So research on the side, like I was, those were my internships. I was always in research, cancer genetics, all of that. So I always operated in this logical space, very much so, almost kind of, very methodical. But I wasn't nurturing my emotional self. So that's I'm going to say that on the side, because that's what Replenish is for me. It's like, okay, that mirror that says, okay, are you nurturing yourself? Are you giving back to yourself? Are you really being authentic with who you are? So college, graduated there, then applied to medical school because I aligned everything, checked off all the boxes, volunteered, did all the clubs you're supposed to do, met all the people you're supposed to meet, I thought, and I got the big fat no to medical school, which was devastating to me because I had only prepared for that. I felt like in my life, that was like what I was going to do. And so that no was necessary though, for me to do the work that was next in my journey. And so that took me, to working for nonprofits, still in the health and wellness field. There's a pioneer for complementary and alternative medicine, James Gordon. I worked alongside him out in Washington, D.C. So learned a lot about that industry, like how to bring Eastern medicine into mainstream medicine. Worked in medical spas, people that, a Black woman, Dr. Andrea Pennington, she operated in Silver Spring, Maryland, and did a lot there. So my eyes were always studying the people that were building.
That was quite the resume. Yes, you were being modest. You're right, bitch.
Right? She got a resume, and a lot of people, she's never really shared that. This is the first platform I think she shared this on.
You got to talk about it. I understand it's you don't like to normally talk about yourself. I don't like talking about myself, but it's
hard
important.
to put it all together because it sounds all over the place, but it really, I've always been a scientist. I study people, and I study. I've always, just been sort of in this, like, the healing health realm. And so I still am very much. And that's sort of my brain in the business. So after that, I went to California. I worked for Exhale Spas, which is a national spa chain. So I was also worked in Black environments and white environments, but so I was able to also see the different dynamics and pull, like, what was working for them, what wasn't working. And so I just had this data bank of sort of small business and corporate business. And so that was sort of my learning ground. And I always knew, I was like, I want to take this back home, but it was like not the right timing yet. So, I was out in LA, and then I got pregnant so with my firstborn. And that was definitely not the next plan, but I was 29. And I was like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to move home, because now it's like about the time to do what I'm called to do and not play around, because here's a baby on the way, and I want to live my life. I want to live the life that I intend to live. And so I was like, I'm moving back home. I can't imagine raising a child without my family, my mother and my sister. And so that's what brought me back home. And so then it also aligned with them. They were already sort of, working together, Mom and Deja. And so the timing really is everything. And no matter what you do, like, we were finding ourselves in our 20s. I was, moving around, and Deja was here really sort of getting into her craft and
in the trenches. I was in the trenches. In the trenches of life.
Yeah, because you already had a child. And so, we were on these two different paths, but at that moment, it sort of was like, okay, it's time to come home. It's time to work together. It's time to figure out how to build what's next. And so that was 11 years ago. And then we got started.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, hold on, I'm trying to take it all and I'm processing that right now. It's very interesting. I'm in y'all's circle, and it's all y'all's kind of all have the same story. We started out doing this, and then I realized there's something clicking. Whether that's Nikki, whether that's Monique, and it's all the same things. And I feel like we go back to our purpose, our ancestors telling us. So you guys were meant to be, healers, and like you say, caretakers. And just as, we're in different generations or dispensations of time, what that looks like is different.
So our mom is also adopted, and we know her biological mother, and we're really close. But when we were in the mix of, creating all of this stuff, we started learning about our ancestors, and our great grandmother is a herbalist. You know what I'm saying? So and then her biological mom is a hairstylist. Like, so we didn't even know, you know what I mean? We didn't really know that. And it was just in the DNA.
It is.
Well, I think this was awesome. I appreciate you both being willing to take out some time to tell your story. And just to share, because I definitely think it's important. I also appreciate, Deja, when you taking my facial. You didn't take my mustache off. I've been growing it for a while. I know. I need to re-up. But I definitely just appreciate, you guys having that space. And then just being intentional and, just always just being, amazing Black women, just for sure. So that's how I think that.
Thank you, Chris. And you're reaching all that you're doing in community to be a witness to your growth. Wow. Man.
Don't do that. Make me cry.
It's like that energy elevation. Talk about elevating. Create your healthy boundaries, because people were like, hey, Chris.
I was picking up what you were putting down. I was picking up what you were putting down.
Thank you for the invitation today.
Yes, thank you for this.
For sure.